So if you watched the last video on solid importing and stock creation, you recognize this part. This video is going to be a tutorial on how to create the WCS or the work coordinate system for the operation that we're going to be performing on this part. We're making an op10. It's going to be located on the top of the part. And in this instance, it's going to be in the bottom left-hand corner. Normally what you'd want to do is look at the print and look at the datums and basically where this WCS should be located. You can determine that based off of where dimensions are coming from. That's a separate discussion that we're going to have later on, probably in class, to make it easier. For right now, all we're going to do is we're going to look at the location, and we're going to go in the bottom left hand corner and create a new plane. I'm going to turn F9 off, even though it's in the right spot, but I want to go ahead and use the op10 levels that we created last time. I'm going to use that intersection point as a start. And I'm going to go to the Planes tab and take a look at what we got. So you will notice that we have some default planes here: top, front, back, bottom, left, and right. We fixed the part's orientation so that's in line with the top. And you also notice that the default plane of top lines up with where we actually want that G54 op10 plane to be. But I will generally prefer to have you make your own plane rather than use the default orientations or the default planes that are existing. So what we're going to do today to start is I'll show you how to duplicate, and then we're going to make one from scratch. So the reason why I don't like using the default planes is you can't rename them. You see how it's locked out. So I actually want to see op10 G54 as the name for this plane. Since the orientation is right, it makes it pretty easy. We can actually highlight the top plane. We can right click and we can hit duplicate. You'll see top -1 drops into the bottom. Now when I right click on that, we can actually edit it and change the name. So name top -1, I'm going to change that to G54 underscore op10. So G54 is the first code call out for our WCS offset. As you create different planes, they go up numerically by 1. So you have G54 might be for op10, G55 would stand for op20, G56 would stand for op30, and so on. So G54 is always your starting point. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you'll notice that we now have a G54 plane. Even though we just created it, the active plane is still top. So you see WCS, C, and T are all located on the top plane. When we begin working, we want to make sure that we are in the proper plane before we start. So you can click on these individual planes to send them down. And I should probably mention, so WCS is the obvious one, so that stands for where this X, Y, and Z is located as far as the machining region goes. C stands for construction and T stands for tool. So for our purposes, we want all three of these planes to always be equal on the same plane. If you ever see this or this, it's going to cause issues with what we're working on farther down the road. So what I always ask people to do is select the plane that you want to use, and you're going to hit the equals button, and that sets all of them to the current plane. Okay, you always want those to be equal. There are instances where it may be helpful to split them, but I will let you know later on down the road as we start getting used to working in this system. You know, we'll complicate things more later on in the class. Now the other option is to start one from scratch. Okay, so these planes aren't always going to line up exactly the way you want. So in order to make a brand new plane, it's just similar to the layers or the levels tab. I'm going to hit the plus button. And one of the easiest ones for us to do is from solid face. We can start from there. So let's go ahead and click from solid face. I'm going to select the top of my part. And after this point, at this point now, you'll see that it's asking us to select the plane orientation. So based off this geometry, there's 8 options that we can cycle through. And we basically want to look like the bottom left-hand corner here. So the X is to the right, Y is going up, and Z is always positive from the top. Okay, you'll see that our option 1 is not correct, right? The Z is good, but the Y and the X are different. So we want to go ahead and cycle through these until we find the correct one. This looks correct, right? X going to the right, Y going up, and then Z positive. So plane 3 of 8 is the correct orientation. I'm going to click OK. Now, we're not in the bottom left-hand corner yet, right? So we've established our directions as far as X, Y, and Z go, but now we need to locate it in space. So we can always change the origin if we know exactly what it is. In this case, we know it's 0, 0, 0. So it's really easy to change the X to 0, the Y to 0, and leave the Z at 0. The other thing we could have done, let's say we do that, and 1. The other thing we could have done is actually just selected it. So if we wanted to move it to WCS origin, we could have hit reselect here, and then just pick the intersection point with those two lines that we drew in the first place. Okay, so those are two different ways you can move that. I'm going to click OK. And then again, you'd have to rename this. So for our purposes, we're going to have two G54s. Op 10. And then I'll just do a 1 next to it just so we do that. You wouldn't normally do that, obviously, right? You'd only have 1. And actually, just to keep it simple, I might just delete that one since we just did that. So selected. There we go. So now let's practice and do one on the bottom. Let's go ahead and let's say we're going to do 2 operations here. So the top one is op 10. Let's say now we're going to flip it over. And let's make a G55. And let's just center it on this whole position here, okay? Again, no rhyme or reason. We're just practicing making the planes. Again, you have to reference the print to actually see what we're doing and how we're going to set this up. So let's do that. So we're located in the back. This time we're not going to duplicate anything. We're going to create a brand new one from scratch. I'm going to go to create new plane from solid face. I'm going to select the bottom of this part. And now we got to look at the orientation again. So if this is the direction, this is the way that the part is going to be in the vise, it looks like plane number 1 is actually perfect for us because we have a Z positive now from the back. We have Y going up and X going across to the right. So this is the right orientation. Now we need to rename it and position it appropriately. So this will be G55, op 20. Now we don't know where we are in space relative to the hole here. So if we want to actually indicate our 0, 0, 0 point on the center of this hole, the easiest thing for us to do would be to reselect the move to WCS origin. So we'll hit reselect, and I'm going to go ahead and just snap to the top of that circle. I'm going to click OK. All right. Now I'd highlight this as the active, and I'd hit the equal button to bring the WCS C and T planes all in line together. Now the reason why you might want to do this is maybe you're indicating off the hole and that's the best surface to put the probe into. So you would edge find the center of this circle and then establish your 0 point on the machine located here. Normally you're going to be doing edges of the part for that, but sometimes in some instances you will want to do that. And again, if you want to see a preview of where these are, you can actually click these and it will show you where we are. So we can right click top, make that equal, right click top. And then there's our location, the bottom left hand corner. Now if we make this equal and we hit the G button, which stands for graphic view, you can actually flip the part over, and that's how you can get the orientations that you want to look at really quickly too, by using that G button. So that's basically creating WCS planes in a nutshell. The actual creation part isn't that complicated, but knowing where to locate them based off of your tolerance zones and what's actually easily accessed as far as touching the tool off with either a probe or an edge finder, you kind of have to think about that kind of stuff outside of Mastercam and establish it before you actually come in here and create the planes. This is not something that's just randomly selected. It's some thought process has to go into why you're zeroing out in that location. It's not as simple as just creating it and letting it go. You need to think about it a little bit first. So as I said before, a lot of this will be set up for you in the tutorials at first, but later on down the road you'll only be giving a solid part, and you will be asked to create your stock and your planes by yourself without being told exactly what to do. So you're going to want to keep this video for reference, and don't lose track of where it is, because you'll probably want to be looking at it fairly often. Okay, thank you very much.